और उसके बाद ये मेरा ख्याल है कि बड़ी लंबी मुद्दत के लिए वज़ीर आज़म वहाँ रहे हैं। और उसके अलावा ये पहले जो है भी पाकिस्तान का दौरा कर चुके हैं, लेकिन मैं आपको ये बताऊं कि ये इस वक्त जो है ऑस्लो सेंटर फॉर पीस एंड ह्यूमन राइट्स इन्होंने कायम किया है, उसकी इन्होंने बुनियाद डाली। अभी भी ये उनके जो है चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव हैं, एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर हैं उनके, और एग्जीक्यूटिव चेयर हैं उसके। ये मैं आपको थोड़ा सा पस मंज़र बताना चाहता हूँ कि जो बॉन्डेवर्क साहब थे, ये पहली मरतबा आज़ाद कश्मीर में 2017 में तशरीफ़ लाए थे, और उसके बाद गुज़श्ता बरस 2018 में इन्होंने हमारे साथ मुशावरत की, यहाँ हुकूमत पाकिस्तान से मुशावरत की, यहाँ की सियासी जमातों से मिले। तो नवंबर 2018 में ये पहले हिंदुस्तान गए और वहाँ बेंगलोर में तशरीफ़ ले गए, जहाँ इन्होंने श्री श्री रविशंकर से मुलाकात की। एक ऐसी कोई शख्सियत है वहाँ की जिनकी जो नरेंद्र मोदी के बहुत करीब हैं। दिल्ली में जो है इनकी एक वहाँ के एमपी से, मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट से मुलाकात हुई, और उसके बाद ये श्रीनगर तशरीफ़ ले गए, जहाँ इनकी मीर वाइज उमर फारूक साहब से और सैयद अली गिलानी साहब से मुलाकात हुई। इनका एक मिशन है कि ये किसी तरीके से ख़ित्ते में अमन के लिए कोशिश करें, और मसला कश्मीर के हल के लिए इन्होंने अपनी कोशिशें शुरू कर दी हैं। हम इनका खैर मकदम करते हैं, इनको यहाँ पाकिस्तान में एक मरतबा फिर खुश आमदीद कहते हैं। और मैं इसके साथ ही जो है आई रिक्वेस्ट Prime Minister Bondevic to speak to the media.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me start by thanking the President to receive us. It's a great pleasure to be back in Pakistan, where I was also November last year. And as I understood was mentioned, I was also in Kashmir, both sides, and met the President up there. Just as a brief background, after I stepped down as Prime Minister of Norway in 2005, I founded the Oslo Center. We are working for peace, for democracy, for human rights, with projects in several countries. I became engaged in the Kashmir issue a couple of years ago, also through people living in Norway from Pakistan and from Kashmir. And when I'm engaged, it is not on behalf of the Norwegian government, but it is on my own behalf and as executive chair of the Oslo Center. We know that this is the longest lasting conflict in Asia, and people are suffering. And especially over the last days, the situation has escalated and may be dangerous. We know the background for that with the last terror incident in Kashmir, which I condemn. But this is also a new example that violence is not appropriate means to solve this conflict. There is no military solution to the Kashmir conflict. The only sustainable solution is a political settlement. I very well understand the strong reactions against the terror incident, but sooner or later the parties concerned must meet for a dialogue. And I will encourage the Prime Ministers, both of India and of Pakistan, to restrain from any escalation that can be dangerous, to calm down the situation, and to start a process for a peaceful solution. I also have some contacts to India, which was mentioned here, especially with my friend Shri Ravi Shankar. And I want to keep the channels open both ways. And It's highly timely now to try to have channels for the leaders, both in India and Pakistan, but also in Kashmir, because they must also be on board to find a peaceful settlement. People deserve it. It cannot go on as it is doing now. And therefore, I also mean that the international community must increase its engagement. I welcome statements from international leaders, and we know there are several UN resolutions, and there is a recent report half a year ago about from the UN Human Rights Council and Special Representative about the human rights situation in Kashmir, and I think this must be followed up. We know that there also has been a previous agreement between India and Pakistan, and India is emphasizing that now that this is a bilateral issue. Fine, but if it's a bilateral issue, it should be taken initiative to meet bilaterally and to find a solution. So that's what I will encourage the leaders to do. And once again, I thank the President for taking time and let me get an insight in your assessment of the situation.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister Bondewijk. And if there are any questions from the floor. Ji.
Mr. Prime Minister, when you think about the activities of the terrorist activities, what is the difference between the terrorist activities and the freedom fighters activities? The world is mixing these things because they are fighting against the freedom. And if you kill my mother, if you kill my father, if I do something, it is not called terrorist activity, because the attack was not to the innocent people, it was attack on the military, and military is killing my mothers and fathers and daughters. What's your comments, please?
Well, as I said,
just
okay, one more.
जैसे कि सब आपने बात की है आर्मी बिरादरी की और अवाम मुत्तहिदा की आर्मी इंसानी हकूक़ की तंजीमों की, हम हर दफ़ा सुनते हैं पाकिस्तान की तरफ से भी अगर कश्मीर बेस कैंप जो है उसकी तरफ से भी कहा जाता है आर्मी बिरादरी से अपीलें की जाती हैं, लेकिन एक तरफ पाकिस्तान का किरदार ये है कि पाकिस्तान अमन चाहता है खिते में, लेकिन दूसरी तरफ भारत जो है वो बजाय टेबल के आने के मुज़ाकरात के आने के बजाय वो इस कशीदगी को बढ़ा रहा है, जैसे कि अभी उसने मज़ीद फौज जो है वो कश्मीर में भेजी है। तो आप इस मौके पे आलमी इंसानी हकूक़ की जो तंजीमें हैं, अवाम मुत्तहिदा है, आलमी बिरादरी है, उसके किरदार को कैसे देखते हैं?
Yeah.
You respond to that question.
Yeah, I do.
Let's wait for the...
Yeah, we wait. Please. Yeah, to your question about the terror incident. As neutral in this conflict, I remind you what I said in my statement, namely that violence is no solution. From whatever side it is used. And we are trying to fight terror all over the world where it takes place. And we condemn it. And that's also what I do with regard to the terrorist act in Kashmir. It's no excuse for using terror. And I'm glad that also the Pakistani government has been clear on that, and that they are not behind it. So regardless of who is responsible, I will condemn it. And we hope to find another way forward.
थैंक यू. आपने मुझसे सवाल पूछा है जी. मैं एक ये बताऊं कि एक पिछले दिनों जो है, पिछले सालों में आपने देखा होगा कि बैनुल-अक़वामी सतह पे हुकूक इंसानी की जो तंजीमें हैं या जो पार्लियामेंट्स हैं दुनिया की, वो यूरोपियन यूनियन की यूरोपियन पार्लियामेंट हो या उसके अलावा बरतानवी पार्लियामेंट हो, दूसरी जगह पे भी जो पार्लियामेंटेरियंस हैं वो अपनी आवाज़ बुलंद कर रहे हैं. ख़ुद प्राइम मिनिस्टर बॉन्डविक ने जिक्र किया कि किस तरीके से गुज़श्ता बरस जो है अक़वाम मुत्तहिदा ने अपनी एक रिपोर्ट शाया की थी. तो ये सारे के सारे जो हैं इक़दामात खुशाइंद हैं, लेकिन ये काफ़ी नहीं है. अब जो बैनुल-अक़वामी बरादरी को और ख़ास तौर से जो उनकी हुकूमतें हैं, वो अमेरिका, बरतानिया और फ्रांस की हों या रूस और चीन की हों, ये सारे के सारे मुस्तक़िल अरकान हैं सलामती काउंसिल के, इनको आगे बढ़ के इस मसले को हल करवाने की कोशिश करनी चाहिए. ख़ास तौर से अक़वाम मुत्तहिदा को उनको एक ख़ुसूसी नुमाइंदा मुक़र्रर करना चाहिए. एक दो तीन चीज़ें जो इन्होंने कही हैं वो मैं थोड़ा सा बताना चाहता हूँ और मैं उनकी तौसीक़ भी करता हूँ. इन्होंने ये कहा है कि मसला कश्मीर का कोई अस्करी हल नहीं है, और ये हम भी कहते हैं, यानी अहले जम्मू कश्मीर कहते हैं, पाकिस्तान कहता है. उन्होंने दूसरा ये कहा है कि फ़रीक़ैन के दरमियान डायलॉग होना चाहिए, बिल्कुल ज़रूरी है. और पाकिस्तान और हिंदुस्तान को इन्होंने ये कहा है, अपील की है कि किसी भी तरीके से कोई ऐसा तरीका इस्तेमाल करें, पुरअमन सियासी और सफारती तरीका, ताकि हालात बिगड़ने ना पाएँ और पुरअमन हल की कोशिश की जाए मसला कश्मीर की बिलखुसूस. और इनके हिंदुस्तान में भी राब्ते हैं और ये उनसे भी मतलब ये कहेंगे कि सूरत हाल को ठंडा करने की कोशिश की जाए, इसे इस तरीके से जो है एक से जो एस्केलेशन की तरफ ना ले जाया जाए. इन्होंने ये कहा है कि इस वक्त जो है वक्त का तकाजा ये है कि कोई ऐसे चैनल तलाश किए जाएं कि हम सूरत हाल को बिगड़ने से बचा सकें. और जैसा कि मैंने पहले कहा, इनका भी यही कहना है कि इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी को अपना किरदार अदा करना चाहिए, और ख़ास तौर क्योंकि इन्होंने कहा कि यूएन की करारदादें मौजूद हैं कश्मीर के सिलसिले में, और यूएन की रिपोर्ट भी, जिसका अभी मैंने थोड़ी देर पहले हवाला दिया. तो आखिरी जो नुक्ता इनका था वो बहुत अहम था. वो कह रहे हैं कि हिंदुस्तान ये कहता है कि ये दो तरफ़ा मामला है, तो ये कह रहे हैं कि बफ़र्ज़ महाल अगर मान भी लिया जाए कि ये दो तरफ़ा है, तो उस सूरत में भी कम से कम जो है मुज़ाकरात तो शुरू होने चाहिए, कोई बातचीत तो होनी चाहिए. तो और कोई सवालात जो जी आप.
You have mentioned a special rapporteur on Kashmir issue, particularly from United Nations. You have repeatedly requested to that, but do you not think that there is a dire need that there should be a permanent desk on Kashmir in Pakistan's Foreign Affairs Ministry, which can deal and have linkages across the world with all embassies, and embassies should also have some sort of Kashmir cell in that, so that Kashmir issue must have to be highlighted across the world without any distinction that whether the Kashmiris are living in that particular country or not. Because that is very important to knock the door in every capital to raise this issue, because this is the high time to resolve this particular issue, because South Asia is not right now at the tipping point of war. How do you see it?
Well, you made a suggestion, and I think this is a very popular demand from the people across Pakistan, and Kashmiris also make this demand from time to time. And I think that this demand should be addressed to the Foreign Ministry of Pakistan and to the State of Pakistan. But let me tell you that when we say that there should be a special envoy of the Secretary General, it has no correlation with the desks, Kashmir desks at the foreign of our embassies. Or when we say that there should be a special rapporteur to be appointed by either the Human Rights Council or by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. These are legitimate demands because Kashmir is burning. There are massive human rights violations there, and now the developments in Kashmir and around Kashmir threaten regional peace and security, and the actions taken by the Indian government or the statements given by them, they are pushing the region to war. And therefore you need these envoys or rapporteurs who can diffuse the situation, de-escalate the situation. As far as the advocacy of the Kashmir cause is concerned, even if there are no Kashmir desks, the ambassadors are there. And the ambassadors are equipped and empowered to raise the voices for the realization of the right to self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. There is no deficiency in this regard, but your point is well taken that more efforts can be made to reinforce the diplomatic apparatus that we have.
So my question is from the former Prime Minister of Lahore. So most welcome again to Pakistan first of all. Just recently after Pulwama incident, Indian military in its press conference, a high-level military officer in his press conference, he has stressed that the government has given them free hand of any sort of violence within occupied Kashmir, Indian occupied Kashmir, and they are now initiating the genocide. Official statement was made by the Indian military of genocide of the Kashmiri people, and after that we have seen that the extremist Hindu factions, they were burning the properties of the Kashmiris, they were burning people alive, and now they have started genocide across valley and into other parts of Jammu. How do you particularly see this type of aspects from Indian democracy?
I will of course not judge between India and Pakistan, but I will appeal to both parties to restrain from any actions that will escalate the conflict and make it even more dangerous than it is already. As I said, violence in any or another way is not the solution. And therefore I think there is a heavy responsibility to the two prime ministers to stand up, calm down the situation, and be open for a dialogue.
Thank you. आप उसके बाद आप होंगे और फिर आप होंगे. Three questions, last three questions. Oh, could you please?
My question is to you, sir. After the Pulwama attack, the reaction of Modi regime, their media, and now after 2 days, now what we read in the Hindustan Times or other newspapers, they claimed it to be a concocted one. They just tried to demonize Pakistan government and their forces that they were involved in that incident. Sir, my question is that why don't the Kashmiri people, who are raising the Kashmiri flag across the world, why don't they make the world realize about the Indian real face behind their propaganda teams, how they are demonizing the freedom movement as terrorist movement? Indirectly, we have seen that they are involved behind those incidents. Why not instead, along with the human rights violations, we should apprise the world about their negative role in those violence, their indirect involvement in those violence incidents, and then blaming all them on the Kashmiri youth, particularly, and then on Pakistan.
Thank you. आप
जनाब सदर मैं ये कहना चाहूँगा कि खेल का मैदान हो, सकाफती मैदान हो, सियासी मैदान हो, या आज़ादी हो, या कश्मीरियों का हक खुदारादियत आज़ादी हो, या उसमें बिग थ्री हो, या कोई भी सिलसिला हो, उसमें हिंदुस्तान हमारे खिलाफ चलता है। जैसा कि आपने अपनी स्पीच में भी अभी फरमाया कि बहुत सारी इंसानी हकूक़ की आलमी तंजीमों ने मिल करके उसे कायल करने की भी कोशिश की, लेकिन अब उसके बावजूद भी अब पुलवामा का ड्रामा जो है वो फिर खेला गया है। अब क्या यूएनओ को बहुत दफा कहा जा चुका, 70 सालों से हम अपने बहन भाइयों के खानदान वालों की लाशें उठा रहे हैं, क्या जो साबिक वज़ीर आज़म साहब आए हुए हैं इनका आपने बताया कि ओस्लो में इन्होंने इंसानी हकूक़ की तंजीम भी कायम की है, उसके हवाले से भी ये अपना प्रेशराइज उस पर करना चाहेंगे और राय रात पे, या अब ये इनफ इज इनफ के ये बहुत हो चुका है?
My question is to Mr. Bedouin. Sir, could you just explain us shortly that the whole world is talking about that there is very bad situation in Kashmir, but the Western countries, especially the United Nations, they are silent. They are not playing the effective role that they can give something to the Kashmiri people. How could you shortly explain this? Thank you.
These two questions.
Yeah.
I mean the first one.
First, when you described acts from the Indian side, as I said, I want to be neutral. I want to have channels to both sides, and consequently, I cannot judge what is done from the one or the other side. I take note of that there is much violence, and I say that is not the solution. It's an appeal from me to both sides to restrain from that, to calm down. With regard to the UN, we know that there has been several UN resolutions during the years, and last June we got a report about the human rights situation from the UN Human Rights High Commissioner. And there is also a report from a group of members of parliament in UK. And I think it's a clear documentation that human rights abuses are taking place in Kashmir, no doubt. India is emphasizing this is a bilateral issue. But as I said, if it is, okay, fine. But then it must be taken initiatives to get the bilateral dialogue. And as long as that is not the case, I think that the international community also has to be engaged. Now we have seen statements from international leaders over the last days, also from the US President. And I welcome more engagement also from the UN. And I myself, I'm only acting on behalf of my own. I will try to contribute to get focus on the Kashmir issue, because the tragedy that this conflict has been going on for so many years. It should be possible to let it come to an end.
Responding to your question, I would say that Mr. Bondevik is a statesman of international stature. He is neutral, impartial, but he is interested in resolving the Jammu and Kashmir dispute and to make intervention personally and through his center, the Oslo Center, to put an end to the human rights violations in the Indian occupied Kashmir. So we appreciate his efforts which he is making, and we will support his efforts. In fact, I mean, let's hope that channels on Pakistani side and Indian side remain open to Mr. Bondevik, and he can make peace in the region and create conditions for building peace, which is the aspiration of the people of Pakistan, India, and the people of Jammu and Kashmir. One thing that I want to clarify here in English, I think this was a question which was asked repeatedly, and you started this conversation. there is no terrorism. I want to say it very categorically that there is no terrorism in the Indian occupied Kashmir. That millions of Kashmiris believe that theirs is a political movement. This is a movement towards realization of their fundamental rights and their fundamental freedoms. And this is a disputed territory. The people of the occupied Kashmir have to determine their future, their political future, and their preference is that this future should be determined in accordance with the UN Security Council resolutions. They should be implemented, and the United Nations should step forward. All these developments that take place from time to time they are there because the root cause has not been addressed, and the root cause is denial of the right to self-determination to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. So the Kashmiris do not believe in terrorism. They do not endorse or support terrorism. Theirs is a peaceful movement, and they have vowed that peacefully they would be able to get their rights. So इसमें उर्दू में मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि कश्मीरियों का, अहले जम्मू कश्मीर का किसी किस्म की दहशतगर्दी के साथ कोई ताल्लुक़ नहीं है। तो ख़वातीन और हज़रात बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। मेरा ख्याल है कि जी आप शुक्रिया बहुत बहुत। तो मैं एक मरतबा फिर आपका शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ। एंड आई थैंक मिस्टर बॉन्डेविक फॉर बीइंग हियर एंड आमिर शेख साहब फॉर जॉइनिंग अस। थैंक यू सो मच।